I'm a Brexiteer, a passionate Brexiteer. I voted for Brexit. I was going to say staunched, but staunched isn't a very nice word because it kind of implies that one is narrow-minded or, sort of very stubborn about it. But I'm a passionate Brexiteer, and I voted for Brexit. But I do actually agree with a lot of Remainers. I agree with Remainers on some levels. Now, you might be thinking, what on earth am I talking about? What's he talking about? He's a Brexiteer, voted for Brexit, but he's saying that he agrees with uh, Remainers on certain things, on a lot of things, actually. Well, I'll explain in a moment. But first of all, I've said for a while, I don't think I've said it on this channel, but I've been saying for a while, I, for want of a better word, literally cannot believe that anybody could even anyone in power, any prime minister or any politician could even consider, could even conceive of, could even think about reversing Brexit. Now, I would say that even if I was a Remainer, I'd say that because it is beyond unbelievable that any prime minister or political representative would even suggest that we should be reversing the result of a democratic vote, of a referendum. That is beyond obscene. It's beyond shocking. I just cannot believe people are even considering it. And I would say that even if I was a Remainer, and I'm repeating myself, but I would, because how can you even think about that? How can that happen? That is profoundly undemocratic, profoundly disrespectful, profoundly wrong on so many levels. And we're living in surreal times. I often say that, but that really is beyond unbelievable. But yeah, so that's quite current at the moment because of what's going on with Starmer's renegotiation, so-called renegotiation, with the EU. Again, yeah, half the country are obviously very angry about that. But back to the original opening point, why do I agree? Why do I empathise? Why do I understand and agree with the views of a lot of Remainers when I'm such a staunched, for want of a better word, I don't like the word staunch too much, but when I'm such a staunch Brexiteer, how could I possibly be for the views of Remainers? Well, when Remainers talk about friendship and cooperation between European nations and, free trade, trade agreements, friendship, working together, cooperation, of course, we're a community here in Europe. Okay, we've all got our own individual identities. Britain is its own nation, and I don't want the European Union, but of course, I want friendship, cooperation, and to work together to some degree. But what I don't want, and what people like me don't want, is this huge, corrupt, powerful political machine in Brussels, overreaching, corrupt, greedy, well, sinister, very sinister. Actually, I've always said this. It's very, very sinister. This is what a lot of Brexiteers don't want. Of course, they want friendship, cooperation, which is what Remainers think that we don't want. Of course, you want friendship, cooperation, um, working together. Yes, we are a community. Yes, we are all linked up and connected, and we are all Europeans. But at the same time, we're British. The French are French. Those are nation states and must remain sovereign and independent as much as is absolutely possible. So yeah, this is where Remainers think that us Brexiteers are wrong or misguided or bad even, or they demonise us, some of them, because they think that we're for division and separatism, and that we're racist or xenophobic or don't like such and such nations in Europe. when it's nothing to do with that. And I've been saying this for years. I've been saying this since long before the referendum. It's nothing to do with dislike of any particular nation or racism or xenophobia. It's about a dislike and a profound concerns and worries about the Brussels machine, the European Parliament, which is so overreaching, so big, often anonymous. At least with Westminster, we know who those people are. We know who's up to what to some extent, and we know where to direct blame, for want of a better word. But with the European Union, it's such a massive machine, and we don't need that huge political machine in Brussels to have friendship, cooperation, to have some agreements in place to meet up and talk about certain things from time to time. We don't need that. I don't understand the point of that massive bureaucratic, what's the other word? Technocratic machine in Brussels. We don't need that. So this is where there might be a misunderstanding between Remainers and Brexiteers. Remainers thinking that we're for separatism, for xenophobia, for racism, for being cut off, from breaking up the European Union. We're not. Many of us, well, myself definitely, we want that cooperation. We want that community between European nations. So this is why I say I actually empathise with and agree with a lot of Remainers, and I've always tried to listen and empathise and with them, and I would expect the same from them. But I think what they don't often see is how sinister and bad, and I'm using a lot of sort of throwaway words here, and this is only a 10-minute video, so we haven't got time to go into too much detail in this particular video. But what they're not seeing, what Remainers are not seeing or don't want to see, or what they're confusing with xenophobia, racism, separatism, and nationalism and all that, what they're confusing is, or getting confused about, is what the Brussels machine is actually about, and what they're up to, and what it's like, and how bad it is. Look how long it's taken, for example, for Ursula von der Leyen's hidden, secret, corrupt text messaging exchanges with the head of Pfizer to do with the vaccine. Those texts have been hidden, and now she's finally been not being sentenced, but she's now been finally, a court has ruled that she needs to answer for herself and needs to reveal what these text messages with the head of Pfizer over the vaccine were about. So that was ordering too much of the vaccine than was actually needed, trying to get more supplies, over ordering for the vaccine for the European Union. Look how long it's taken. I believe the European Union is sinking and collapsing gradually, so I wouldn't have been too worried anyway about what Starmer's up to, because the European Union is on the way out. For example, the French movement for Brexit is getting stronger and stronger. Frexit is getting more and more strong. They're fighting more and more in France now. They're wanting more and more to get out of the EU. But yeah, we're up to 9 minutes now, so I will be strict this time and keep it to 10 minutes. This is why I agree with Remainers, because I want friendship, cooperation, community, getting together to talk about certain things, working together to some extent, but I don't want that Brussels machine, that huge bureaucratic, they want a superstate, supranational parliament. They want a superstate, and people have pulled back the other way. They don't want that. France is France, Britain is Britain, Spain is Spain, Italy is Italy. But that's my most salient point. Yes, I do agree with a lot of Remainers on that level. And I think there's some misunderstanding and crossed wires there, because we can agree on some things, and crossed wires, I think, really a lot of the time, because I empathise with them. And also, as I said, I just cannot believe, it's just inconceivable and beyond obscene and shocking that Starmer is thinking of going against that democratic vote, that referendum, that is beyond shocking. And I've been thinking that for years. How can anybody even think about reversing that or going back on that? It is, we're living in surreal times, and I don't call this government a government. I call them a mafia. I don't call them the government anymore. This is beyond shocking, beyond corrupt, beyond obscene. So we really need to use a cliche. I don't like this term, but we need to wake up, and we need to push back and fight back very urgently.